Good morning, friends. How are you, everybody? Hello. Welcome on this special on location 11/11 today. I hope you are finding your way here. Bob Guinan, good morning to you, sir. Good to see you with us. I hope you're well. Great to see you. Thanks for coming out last night and being part of our study. I hope it was edifying for you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome on this special day. Good morning. Good morning, Donna. Good to see you. Hope you are well this morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome with this special on location. John, good morning, John. That place looks familiar. It does, doesn't it? Imagine that. How are you? Good to see you. We're going to talk a little bit about that place behind me in a minute. So glad you're here. Glad you're here for it. I am well. That building does look familiar, doesn't it? Good. I'm glad you enjoyed the study, Bob. Yeah, and I'm hopeful they'll get deeper and wider over the next days, over the next weeks. So I hope you'll be along for the whole journey. Hey, good morning, Robin. Glad you are here. So good to see you. You are always a gift to be here. So glad that you're a part of this. I just can't. Just by way of commercial this morning, if you are not spending a little time passing time with Pastor Robin, that happens Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:45. I really recommend it. Robin has, through this whole time, Robin's been an incredible encouragement to me. Well, what am I saying? Through most of my adult life, Robin's been an incredible encouragement to me. But her willingness to jump into all this. Jamie's gonna miss this. So that her willingness to jump into all this. So go watch. You're here now anyway. But spend a little time passing time with Pastor Robin on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 11:45, because her willingness to jump in has been a huge encouragement to me to continue to jump in, and that whole thing about iron sharpening iron, it's been real. Like, it has been very real that her, the brilliance that she has brought has inspired me to bring more. And so I just can't thank her enough for her willingness to continue to endeavor to persevere in these days. So I'm thankful to her, and really recommend to you on Suttons Bay Congregational Church out in Suttons Bay, Michigan. If you want to check her Facebook feed out, Passing Time with Pastor Robin on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay. And enough for the commercial. Hey, good morning, Irene. Glad you are here. Vicky, hope you are well. Hope your sister is well. Hope Carol's doing all right. Hope things are good in that world. Hope she is healing well. Good morning, Derek. Good to see your face too. All your little faces all squished in there. Like, that is terrific, and thank you. You're a gift. Morning, everybody. Morning. We'll give it another minute as you kind of survey the frontispiece behind me. Some of you will know what it is. Some of you, Rogers Jewelry has an ornament of the school. Very nice. I took my sister's cat and dog to the vet. The dog has definitely given me, oh, goodness gracious. She has had, it has been one thing after another for Carol, but I'm so glad she's doing well. That is an encouragement. That's really great. So we will continue to hold her in our prayers. Please continue to pray for Amy. If you haven't seen, I don't know if she'll be along today, but she has been she continues to struggle with some health issues. So, Mahmoud, good morning, my friend. Hope you are well. All right, welcome everybody. I am so glad you're all here. Today we are off campus. We are here. This is, for some of you, a very special place, and for some of you, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But behind me is Morse High School. It is where I went to high school. It is where my dad went to high school. It's where my grandfather went to high school. It is a place of renown here in my hometown, in my area here in Maine. And so we're up here today. One of the things, because this is kind of an auspicious day. They have built, and as you know, things will happen. They have built a new high school, and this is the day that there are no longer students here. And it's been this week that students are now finding their way to a new campus in town. But we are on top of the hill here on High Street, in front of this visage, because it's part of it is so much of what I want to talk about today is this notion of sacred space and sacred places, because as we look at Morse High School behind me, this visage, I can look at that and like many places, and I imagine that you have, that are sacred to you, or that are special to you, or that have significance in your life. I can look at that. I can look at that frontispiece and know right behind those doors is a place called the Montgomery Theater, where Mrs. Montgomery and her husband were a part of the theater department. And if you don't know, I was voted most theatrical in my class in high school. Imagine that. Who'd have guessed it? But I was a part of the theater department there, and the opportunity to get on a stage for the first time and stand before people, that was transformed me in some ways. Not into this, into pastoring and the things that I'm doing now, but into an awareness of having a voice in the world and being someone in this world. I fell in love behind those doors. I had my heart broken behind those doors. I realized I wasn't good at math and needed to kind of bluff my way through some mathematics through those doors. I learned to wrestle in those doors in the storied wrestling room, and learned something about the transition from boy to man in the endeavoring of 9 minutes on a mat, and what happens in that circle, and the intestinal fortitude and the depth of being what we need, of perseverance that needed to happen in that place. I ate lunch in what is storied place called the Pit, which was the sunken gymnasium in there. I had great teachers like Mrs. Tiemann and other people who taught me some things about a world that was bigger than simply this place here in Maine. And I know Donna's an alum, and she had dance recitals in the 50s, as she says right here. So this has been here. What is it? 1923 is that? It was 04, I think it was founded, and 23. This visage was. So people from this town have been educated and lived in there, and so there's something sacred about this place on the hill. And there's something sacred about places on hills everywhere, because there's this text in Isaiah that it's the second chapter of Isaiah. So it's this beginning of Isaiah. Now, Isaiah is a neat book in the sense that it's this big gear shift of a book between the stories and the establishment of the great and grand people of David and Solomon and the temple and Jerusalem as this power, and then at the moment of and then in Isaiah, it is all of that is crumbling away, and it is this ending time of the power of Israel and it seemed appropriate. And it's funny to me how at the very beginning of the book, this shift that happens from we are a great and grand authority in this world that has a storied and long legacy to this point where we are now headed for destruction, and we are now we are now simply in this place where we wait for a new thing to come. And Isaiah says this, it says, many people will come and say, come up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of Jacob, and he may teach us his ways, and all may walk in his paths. He may teach us his ways, and all may walk in his paths. In this transition time between the great kingdom of David and the overwhelming of the Babylons that was coming in, and the new thing that would someday come that nobody knew when it would come, but this destruction in the midst, what was the injunction? To go back to the hilltop, to go back to the mountaintop. You see, before the temple, before the thing, before all the other stuff, before the hokey pokey and all this, it was to go back to the sacred place of the mountain, to go to the mountaintop, and there find the temple of Jacob, this ancient place. So now, I couple this with some really interesting archaeology stuff that's been going on lately. Now, what they're discovering about places all over the world is that what they used to think happened about people that went from living nomadic lives, kind of going south in the winter and going north. Everybody in New England knows this. There's snowbirds everywhere that, people kind of close up the house and head south and go to Florida, and then they come back well, this is an ancient pattern. They actually, that's not new. That's how more of humanity, humanity spent more time doing that than it's spent planting itself in one place. And what they discovered, what archaeologists are discovering, and this isn't kind of religious archaeologists. Most of these archaeologists are part of the academy or atheists, who knows what they are. But what all the evidence is starting to point to more and more and more and more is that what we thought, what they used to think happened was, we got good at farming, and we figured out it was easier to make a living, kind of staying in one place and farming and all this sort of stuff. And then it was harder actually. And so that gave rise to all these other things. What they've discovered is that's actually not true. That's actually what the evidence is pointing to is that actually what happened was that people in their nomadic wanderings, in their journeyings, discovered powerful places. They discovered places in which they encountered the divine, which they encountered something larger than themselves. And they began to ritualize those places. And so they began to gather in them, whether they were a grove of trees, whether they started stacking rocks on top of each other. That's big in the Old Testament. Whether they started to, that significant things happen. And you see this in the Old Testament text, but nobody really looks at the Old Testament text to kind of verify archaeology. But this is actually what happens, is that people, because if you think about it, actually living a nomadic life, being a snowbird, is freaking awesome. Wouldn't you want to, really, why do we, it's the 28th and it's a nice day here, or the 25th, it's a nice day here right now, but it's still cold and the wind is blowing and there's snow, and why would you put up with that if you don't have to? Particularly if you're raising kids in it, particularly if you take all that you own with you in it, particularly if there's nothing here to eat and there's something to eat in southern climes, why wouldn't you be a nomad? It's such a better life. But what was it that invested people in a place? Was that they began to have these experiences of something larger than themselves. They began to have experiences of the divine. They began to have an experience of God. And when they began to have that experience of God, they began to tie themselves to that place. We in the Western world and we in this world think about our religious life as an ancillary thing. We think about it as like, oh yeah, well, I'm a Congregationalist and I go there on Sundays and maybe it helps me through the week and that sort of stuff. But most of humanity, in fact, all of civilization, and this is not Andy Stinson, this is not the world according to Andy Stinson. This is more and more research behind this. That entire fact that people stopped moving, planted themselves in a place, and began to live life in that way was founded on the fact that they found God in that place. I want you to hear me on this, because I stand in front of Morris High School, which I did some living in. And a lot of people, some people on this thread did some living in, and some people who will hear this did some living in. And even if you know nothing about Morris High School and you don't care, that there's places in your life that you did some living in, and that have been places that you encountered the divine in, whether you knew it or not, whether you knew it was happening at the time or not, especially when you didn't know it was happening. And it simply found its way to that place and that moment. And that now when you look back, Kierkegaard is famous for this. At the end of his life, he says, I look back over my life and I see as if there were an invisible hand in my life, kind of guiding me from one place to another and watching over me, but I could never know it at the time. We find ourselves in life on hilltops, and sometimes we never know they're hilltops. We find ourselves called to places that are sacred, and we never even knew they were sacred at the time. The best we can manage is, like the Old Testament folks, stack a couple rocks on top of themselves just so that we remember this place. In these days, friends, I want you to remember these places exist, and that even if you feel as if they are in a time of transition, and I'll tell you this transition is a big one for this community and for people in my home and where that I grew up with, and this wider world. That what we show up with today, what we show up with in our lives, is a product of having found God in particular places on particular hilltops. And that we might learn about that. As I reflect about this visage and all the stories and all the stuff that took place and all the connections and all the people I hold dear that have passed through its doors, all of the life and the love and the stuff that happened within them, and all that I hope will happen in the new, that I hope that will hold as deep and as wide place in education and life. And then I think about our church in Fall River and the beauty that is that place and the wonder of it. I just we had a great conversation the other night at council about just loving that space because it has a ministry to do in its beauty and in the living that has happened there. So friends, I want you to remember there are hilltops in your life, that when your little empire starts to fall apart, as it did for the Israelites, the thing to go to is not to abandon all hope, but it is quite literally to run for the hills, to run back to the hilltop places of our life, and remember that though the colors of those days will ever and always be with you and a part of you, and there is a strength in them to draw upon for the establishment of new temples in new places and new visages. We can't go back. We can't resurrect that which was, nor would we even want to. But in living of our days, as we find ourselves a people now planted and rooted versus a people that walk across the face of the earth as much as we are, even though Americans by and large move more than any other people in the world, the average American moves every 5 years. I think it's less than that now. But that we might come and sing our songs and show our colors and be a part and run to the hills of those sacred places in our life. I mean, whatever happens to this building, the fact that this was a hilltop for me, the fact that there was growing and teaching in the way of the Lord, even though I never would have called it that at the time, and probably a lot of other people wouldn't have called it that either. Probably, maybe still wouldn't. But the Morse Fight song begins with this line: "The blue and the white, colors ever dear to me." Friends, whatever your blue and white is, wherever your hilltop moments were, where you were cultivated and taught and cared for, where you were held and lifted up, where you did maybe those places that you just did some living, and you left you left some skin on the mat in them, and you left a little part of yourself changed for what you found there. Those are the hilltop places. Those are the sacred places of our lives. And in them, those sacred places where we crafted and made and wrote our stories are the places that began the very fabric of the civilization we see around us, because they were so powerful. They convinced the people to stop moving and stay connected to the one who made them in their experience of God in that place. So friends, as I kind of come up here and say goodbye to this building, and it steps into its new season, I hope as you will run to the hills if you need to. Go and find those places in your life and let them touch you and inform you about how God was with you then, and that you may be reminded and strengthened that God is still with you now. All right, friends, that's my hope for you today, and so I'm gonna stick around and enjoy this place for a little bit and check it out. And it's my hope that you'll stay with us for another 11/11 next Tuesday. We're on to the second Sunday of Lent on Sunday, and in our worship space, and we'll be right here on Facebook Live as well as at 282 Rock Street. So come and be a part. Come and worship with us. Oh, also one last thing: if you get the chance. That on our Facebook page is our link to our YouTube channel, and we had to change our YouTube channel and stuff. So our link is there. I'll try to put it in the description of the messages. So if you would like our YouTube channel, because all of these messages end up getting edited and then they go up onto the YouTube channel. So if you ever want to find anything that we've done over this past year, they're all there. And they're kind of searchable, and you can see them in the way that YouTube does. So I encourage you, if you would throw a subscribe or a like to our YouTube channel, which is FCC Fall River, and so on YouTube. So anyway, thank you for that, and the blue and the white, colors ever dear to me. All right, friends. Peace and grace.